Yes. I like it. It sounds good. I'm here now. Welcome to Synchronicity. We got a special guest this week, Nick Hinton. I have his book in my hand. I recorded an intro before I went and did yoga this morning. I'm doing yoga twice a week now. I fucking love it. Makes me feel real good. Had a cold. Don't feel like I have that cold anymore. Maybe the remnants, but feel real good. The Saturn Time Cube Simulation is the new book by Nicholas D. Hinton. That's my guest today. I will apologize in advance that the audio quality of this is not great. This is the second episode that Nick and I recorded. That's technically not true because I didn't record the first one. Was using Zoom, didn't hit record. Hard to get the audio when you don't hit record. So we did it again last week, and it was another great conversation. I was very sure of one thing. It was going to be that. But we got to go into some of what Nick believes and what's going on a little bit more deeply. And I'm appreciative that we got two basically like hour and a half long conversations with each other because I just got tuned into Nick and am quite interested in the way he thinks and what he is interested in. So I've barely delved into this book, but I can tell you that one of the things it focuses on is this idea of this reality maybe not being as solid as we think it is, whether we believe in simulation theory, or whether we believe in Maya, or whether we believe in samsara, or whether we believe that this is a dream. It's that maybe what we've been taught and how the Newtonian world works isn't all there is to it. And so we get empirical scientific validation from this, from the quantum world and all these other places. But what does this all mean, right? This is where I like to go back to, what does it all mean? Like, why? What's going on? I think we can recognize there are clearly operative principles and laws that happen in this reality, many of which we've just uncovered in the past few months. But why? What's the function? What's the purpose? So again, I really always bring it back here. You are creating your reality at all times. That logically seems inconsistent with how we perceive everything. There's other people. How could we be creating it? There's obviously some co-creation type thing going on, but don't really concern yourself with that until you are fundamentally have built the foundation sure that you are the creator and sustainer of the entire world, of the universe, of the cosmos. For real. The Lord is consciousness. It's the sense of being aware. That is the Lord. That is the God. That is universe. That is Buddha. That is Krishna. So one of the things Nick talks about in this book is that what happens is, and what a lot of people have noticed, is that there seems to be this kind of loop that happens, that we put ourselves here to kind of break out of this limited capacity and limited consciousness to recognize, like, holy shit, we are the programmer. We are the program. We are the simulator. We are the simulation. We are the dreamer. We are the dream. And that seems to be a replicable and identifiable part of this reality. Now, depending on when and where you grew up, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, you're going to have different language to interpret what that means. What's common today is the simulation theory, this idea that there is simulations being run and we're doing all these things and so on and so forth, which, again, if you believe that, you will find evidence that backs that up quite literally, constantly. It's anything though, right? You can think of it like a simulation. You can think of it like a giant movie theater where you go in and watch different movies. You can think of it like a video game. You could think of it like a dream. You could think of it like anything you want. The best way I understand and directly experience what's going on is we can do whatever we want. I think the best thing that we can do is when we get our shit together and figure out what we want in our lives individually, stabilize all our states of consciousness, right? We then go and help other people who maybe need a helping hand. That's when you start going out. And if everyone, this is really my theory. If everyone becomes the best version of themselves, the world is the best version of itself. And the world is a living thing too, right? The earth, Gaia, if we want to get all new agey, it's a being too. So that's what we're doing here. That's the point of it. I like Nick because there's all these different perspectives and insights into kind of what I would call cracks in the foundation of consensus reality, right? If you're someone who just believes in, whatever, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson says, like, if it ends all and be all is with him and what scientific materialism says, don't know about that argument. In the same way that I think, staking out ground without having experienced, yourself as God or as everything and saying, well, I do not believe there is a God. I know there isn't. Or even agnostic. I feel like agnosticism is the new atheism. It's like, well, I'm going to hedge my bets here, but all it is to me is just not waking up to the reality of the situation, that you are actually the divine. You're the sacred and the mundane all at once. That's the beauty of it. It's hard to understand, and we spoke about this a little bit in the fear and desire one, and I know I'm going on a tangent here, but rather than record a whole other episode, let's just deal with it now. Part of the point of suffering and pain and all of this stuff is so we can appreciate when we get to the point where we've eliminated that for the most part or completely from our lives and our consciousness. Like it's hard to understand when you're in the midst of suffering or a difficult or uncomfortable situation, because it's like, yeah, sure, that's convenient. You're not in it. You're saying it from that position. But we all go through these ebbs and flows, and we don't put ourselves through it for no reason. We do it for very specific reasons to teach ourselves things. And I maintain that one of the biggest lessons we're trying to teach ourselves is how to stabilize our state of consciousness. So when we don't have bodies, when that means either after you die or when you close your eyes and try to imagine something, you have control over where you're going and why you're going there. That's pretty important. So I heard Jessa Reed just talk about on a recent episode of her podcast that a lot of people she knows who are incredibly good at manifesting and selecting realities kind of gave up all their desires, which paradoxically got them everything they want. And I've experienced that too. But she was talking about how people then can't really figure out which timeline they want to jump onto or what, way they want their world to work. And I definitely understand that too. But my firm belief and confidence is that if you stabilize your state of consciousness and you can recognize everything through the good and the bad, whatever it is in duality, you always will point your compass in the right direction. And when you open up to that and let it flow, you're living in a constant state of grace. That's really what it is. It's love in action. That's what grace is. That's really what it is. Love in action is grace. Grace is love in action. So back to Nick. He is gracefully, I'm sure in his own mind, sometimes we had a conversation the other day that it doesn't always feel like that, but it is. It's gracefully identifying aspects of our society, culture, and reality that just don't add up, man. There's black cubes everywhere. What do they mean? What is Saturn's influence? What's Kronos doing? How does Uranus feel about this? Kronos' dad. How does Zeus feel about this? Kronos' son that didn't get eaten because he was put in swaddling clothes and given, not him, but the rock was, and given to Kronos, so he couldn't eat him. So Zeus was then suspended in a tree, not on the ground, not in the sky, not on the water, hidden from the Titans' wrath. And then he came up and overthrew them. What does that mean? I don't know. Has stuff to do with this. We'll talk about it in another episode. That's it. Just go tune into Nick on Twitter. He is Nick Hinton. That's Nick Hinton. Extra N for nice. So go check him out. He's got this new book, The Saturn Time Cube Simulation. It is in my hand. Literally, I highly recommend you hit him up on Twitter and get a copy just because he's a cool dude. And just watch what he's kind of been about. I found out later that he kind of got popular from this idea of everyone died in 2012. If you've been listening to this podcast, I've been saying that for a long time. So we're on some similar wave here. I also just want to give a big shout out to tarot. I came home today. There's 2 new decks. One my friend and yoga teacher Erin made, and it's amazing. And I'm going through it, and she did all the drawings. It's so fucking cool. And I got this other one, this alchemical tarot that my friend Sean recommended. He'll be on the show soon. And it's so great. And I got this cool Milarepa tapestry behind me. I found a great place that makes custom tapestries for not a lot of money. It's really nice. Speaking of, the reason I got it is we're going to do some YouTube live streaming, both from my personal channel and the MindPod Network channel. So I already spoke to Corey Allen about doing something. So we're going to have some regular feature there. I got to get all the logistics and technical stuff done. And also I'll be streaming from my YouTube channel, which as soon as I get to 1,000 subscribers, we're right on the cusp here, I'm going to do some music stuff. So I was thinking hanging out, and make a little music live. And anyone has any questions about anything else, we can do that. And I got this tapestry so it doesn't look like shit behind me. So that's what happened there. Just a wonderful day. I had a cold and was like, you look cold. Then I just did some yoga and I feel so much better. Physical exercise. If you're someone like me, it's not an option. And I thought it was an option for most of my life. I actually have to do it to be feeling the way I want to feel. So if you haven't done it and you feel like you should, give it a shot. Don't force yourself. Don't force yourself. Imagine it and then see what happens. Okay. Tarot readings, astrology readings are up. syncpodcast.com/readings. Check it out. Fun stuff going on there. The feed, some of these emails I've been getting back, honestly, it truly touches me to see how it's resonating with a lot of you. And it's just great. I've fundamentally switched my entire money-making operations, and it's gone about as smooth as anyone could ever hope for. And I'm eternally grateful for that. And I love that it's helping you guys. So check that out if it speaks to you. Rate and review this podcast. Share it with someone who listens. Again, I apologize for the audio quality on this. I'm not using Zoom anymore. I don't really want to do remote recordings unless I absolutely have to. I'm doing as many in person as I possibly can. If that means I have to travel to different places, that's what's happening. It's my commitment to you. I just want this show to sound fucking good. You know what I mean? Thank you to also everyone who's been asking about music. I'm plowing ahead. It is now October. I am going back and revisiting songs that I've made as demos, and I'm going to be finishing them up this month and next month. I'm hoping by December, the beginning of 2020, this shit is definitely going to be out and released, and I'm excited for so many of you to hear it. Just cool stuff coming. Check out Nick. Everything is great. Learn your astrology chart, learn all your shit that you need to know, and relax. Everything's good. That's the truth of it. It's all fucking good. Even if it doesn't feel like it's fucking good, I promise you. You could say, well, no, there's starving kids there. How is it all good for them? Well, you know what? If you are keenly tuned in to suffering in the world, get your shit together. Bear witness to what's going on out there. Then when you have the internal and external resources, go solve that shit. You know how amazing that'll feel that you identified an issue in the world and you made it all good for those people too? Fuck yeah. So do that. All right. Without further ado, here is Nick Hinton. Thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Again, we'll point out.
Yeah, again.
You know the phenomena of, I mean, granted, this one was clearly me just shooting myself in the foot by not recording it, but the phenomena of having like things go kind of funky and haywire as you're getting closer to potential realizations or truths. Like, have you noticed that?
Like Agent Smith in The Matrix coming to fuck shit up.
Exactly like that. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that happens not too commonly here, but we were talking about some pretty powerful shit, really related to your explorations of the world, yourself, kind of reality, your new book, which I'm eagerly waiting for. Now we don't have to talk about hypothetically buying it because I bought it and you sent it, and I'm super, so can we start there? We'll get into all the other stuff, like for people who don't know who you are and what you're doing. But I do want to start with this book because Saturn just went direct yesterday or the day before. It actually we saw it move forward. It stationed, it stopped for a little bit after it had been going back, and now it's going direct. And then we also yesterday looked at your chart, which was fascinating. And Saturn obviously plays a role in that. But what's up with your book, man?
So I'm just going to read you the back. It's really short, but I think this explains it the best. It says, a critical look at the strange synchronicities in our world that point to us existing inside of what I like to call the Saturn Time Cube Simulation. And so basically the whole book is just how I tie together like simulation theory and its connection to Saturn, and Saturn potentially being representative of like the Gnostic demiurge.
Excellent. And Saturn typically is associated with Kronos, right? The father of Zeus. Do you know who Kronos' father is? I just found this out yesterday.
Is it like Uranus or something?
Yeah, it's Uranus. Yeah. It is. I didn't know that. Do you know who he copulated with to produce Saturn?
Neptune?
No, Gaia.
No.
Gaia.
Oh, that's crazy.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I didn't know any of this shit because I was like, who's Uranus? Like, I see Saturn gets like big bad Saturn gets all this stuff. Because, like, as I understand it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Saturn is the constraint and impact of time. Not there, Saturn is a lot of things, but this dimensionality of time that we experience predominantly as forward moving, right, is Saturn's influence. Now, we know we have some wiggle room with time because when we close our eyes or just in our minds visit a memory, that's backwards revision, right? We're going backwards. And we know if we're thinking about something in the future, we're in the future. So we do have this somewhat of flexibility, but in this world, in this waking dream of life, Saturn has such an influence. So what led you down the path towards, recognizing this Saturn time cube and then unraveling the mystery and then writing it down in a book? Like, how did you get there?
Dude, honestly, I started studying this or like fell down this rabbit hole like 5 years ago. And I don't know. So once I started studying it, so there was like a few strange things that happened, and I don't know if they were like really real or not because like they could have just been like stupid coincidences. So like when I first started studying Saturn stuff and like started hearing about its connection to time, I started getting into like Philadelphia Project and all these different time travel things too. I was studying just everything about time and time travel, and like the same like within the same week or something, my friend comes up to me. He's like, "Dude, me and my dad found this coin that says like it's from 2055," and like they found out. I'm pretty sure they found out it was fake, but I was like, I don't know. So there was like a lot of like things that were just like about time during the time. So I was just getting really obsessed with that theme. But yeah. So I just fell down the rabbit hole and discovered that Saturn is correlated with Kronos, the god of time in Roman mythology and Greek mythology. And the craziest thing to me is that Saturn has a giant, like 20,000 mile across freaking hexagon.
Yeah.
It's a storm. It's a storm, and so that's where the whole cube idea comes from. Because if you draw some lines inside of a cube, or if you draw some lines inside of a hexagon, you get a two-dimensional view of a three-dimensional cube. So the reason it's a time cube is a tesseract, a four-dimensional cube. So when you see these black cubes everywhere that are literally an altar to Saturn, they're paying homage to Saturn. That's supposed to be like the three-dimensional view of a four-dimensional cube.
I see. What do you think the metaphor here is as we can get lower dimensional representations of higher dimensional realities? What do you think this, because theoretically, right, couldn't that just keep scaling up? We get a four-dimensional representation of a five-dimensional reality.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think the ramifications of this are?
I think this is just like, we're just getting started. Like we have no idea about any of that yet. So that's like jumping the gun, maybe just a little bit.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, I understand wanting to go there, but like, yeah. So this is just like the first step is just recognizing this stuff. We're just moving into 5D, aren't we, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I hear more about it. I've had a few people who I've got tuned into and now are starting to reach out to me talking about 5-dimension consciousness and reality. And I believe that's because it is a predominant narrative that runs through. So I look at almost everything in this world kind of like a meme, right?
Yeah.
We have these digital representations of memes, but everything is a meme. And that's originally, I believe, how the word was conceived. I mean, it's a relatively new word. I forget the guy's name who came up with it, but basically he looked at culture and saw how things moved through them and called it memetic, like a meme. So for me, the meme of 5D consciousness is very strong right now. The meme of astrology is incredibly strong right now. Like, it's just everywhere. It's so nuts. But in terms of actual what's happening, what I feel is happening, what we're calling 5D consciousness is in many ways a large contingent of people, individuals, collectively experiencing a large event, but it's perceived individually. So everyone feels like they're the only one kind of going through it. And then they connect with someone, they're like, oh, you're going through it too? Great. So then they come up with a narrative that says, well, what the fuck is this? Well, it's 5D. And that, just to be clear, like I totally love that narrative and I live in that world because it's super fun. What I really think is happening is people are waking up to how this shit all works. That every individual, as crazy or as weird as this sounds, is literally the creator and sustainer of their world. And we're co-imagining it and we're co-doing it. So there's a lot of other areas of this, but from a very basic standpoint, that's what's happening. And as people wake up to various degrees of that truth and reality, they start experiencing different dimensions of reality and consciousness, one of which we call 5D, which is this kind of like, oh my God, like everything is a synchronicity. Like, here's what I've determined, at least for my own life, about what synchronicities are. I've said this many times, right? Your life is a symphony of synchronicities, and you're the conductor. And the song you're conducting is one to wake you up to who you really are. And that's really what is going on. And you know, sometimes it's easier to believe that synchronicities are set up by some external force because it just kind of makes a lot more sense, especially if your conception of higher dimensions of consciousness is something, some other being outside of you. But if you don't recognize it's actually you creating that being on a very deep level and you forget that little dance, it can be kind of this ever going around and around the mountain while seeing the peak from where you are and even getting there sometimes, but not recognizing that, like, you know what, you're doing all this shit. So that's why I always say, like, what do we think the function of noticing all of these things are? Because to me, it is another stepping stone up the spiral of kind of like, oh shit, I think I know why we're here now. Like, what are we supposed to do? And it doesn't take the fun out of it is my favorite part. Like, I think a lot of people think if like you figured out the theory of everything, it'd be like boring. It's like super not. And it's like, not to say we know everything. It's just that we recognize what creates this world. We can figure that out. That's not even like a stretch anymore. As you've noticed, Bill.
Right. So true.
Funny.
So I guess the way that my model fits into like your view is that I just think that the Saturn Time Cube thing is like the dimension we're in right now and sort of leaving.
Mhm.
And it's just the restrictions that we had to, it was just the rules of the game we had to play by at this time. And something I find interesting is that they're discovering that Saturn's rings are actually disappearing as we're moving into this age of Aquarius.
Wow.
So I really think the matrix structure, power structures, whatever, are just falling apart.
Yeah, it seems like the dissolution is happening. I have my little guidebook here. I don't know where I put it, but I wrote down a bunch of things related to the planets and also the signs like a month or two ago. And now that I keep revisiting, like, so Saturn it rules Capricorn and Aquarius. It's exalted, meaning it's like has beneficial qualities in Libra, which we're in right now. And the qualities typically associated with it are focus, precision, nobility, and karma. And big part of this 5D stuff, and just I think people don't even need to be any new agey or woo about it, is this idea of what's happening right now with karma. It is all coming up. Like right before we got on this call, my mom email and it made me upset. And I was like, I reacted to it. And then right after I reacted to it, I was like, oh my God, I got to work on this shit too. Like all of the stuff is coming up. And that's what Saturn does, because Saturn really is this like paternal authority emperor figure that isn't, if perverted, you get an authoritative dictator who's like a tyrant. But if used responsibly, like, you want an authority figure. You want someone not in like a shit way, they're going to tell you what to do and how to do it, but like, hey, let me offer you some guidance in this situation. So that's why I love that. You know, I agree. I think this paternal Saturn time base, it's not rigid, but disciplined, structured, logical way of looking at the world is absolutely doing what you said. It is dissolving in front of our eyes, and people, for the most part, are kind of like, what the fuck? What is going on? Like, what? There's fucking synchronicities everywhere, and there's a hexagon storm above Saturn. It's like, what the fuck is going on? But it's like pretty amazing that we are all, or many people are tuning into that this is happening. Like, this is what's going on.
Right. And that, like we said, or like we talked about last time, that's why I think the information I'm putting out is getting such like a positive feedback, or it's resonating with a lot of people, because all of this new information is coming out and people are just like, what the fuck? You know,
Yeah.
they're seeing the shit dissolve before their eyes. And, I think that's like postmodernism. I think we live in a postmodern age, and I think that's what people are seeing is like a world view where there is no absolute truth anymore. And to me, that relates to like the Neville Goddard stuff we like to talk about, that there's no such thing as fiction. I think that's like becoming way more evident, that it's like also what Nietzsche said, like there's no such thing as facts, only interpretations. And
Yeah.
so like the solid worldview that we've been taught for so long is like becoming more liquid, and we're seeing that.
Yes, that's the 5D thing. 5D is associated with cups. It's what I've been saying before I knew about the 5D stuff was that it is a flood. It is a biblical flood, not of water, but of unconscious material, which is represented by water. And yeah, man, I try not to get too caught up in it because my name is Noah, so I don't want to get like too like messianic about this shit. But like, when I popped open some William Blake and read his interpretation of Noah in the Bible, and I was like, all right, fucking shit.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, next level.
But I love that. I agree with that, because I was comparing the age of Aquarius to a flood of information. Like, we're literally going to be living in a sea of information, and that relates to the simulation theory too. Like, if you're literally in a sea of electricity information, because I'm pretty sure Aquarius has associations with electricity as well. That just makes sense why the simulation model is becoming so big right now. It's becoming a meme.
Yeah, we spoke about the simulation model. I view it as a simulation in the sense that we're running these kind of phantom projected physical bodies onto a blank canvas of void and emptiness, not like nothing, but like a projector space. So I buy it from that level. The simulation theory where I branch off from, and it's just my perspective, it's just my choice. It's valid for whoever believes that. Like, I really do believe on many levels that if someone is full blown thinking that there's a programmer programming a computer and that this is a simulation, if that's specifically their conception of what happens, and when they die, that is their chance to recognize the truth of that, just in the same way that I think a Tibetan Buddhist who dies is going to see all of the Tibetan wrathful and peaceful deities. Just as I think when Neville Goddard had his visions, he experienced it as strict biblical scenes personified. So I do really believe that any conception that leads you to the truth that you're the programmer and the program is valid. And I think it's wonderful. I do think that's why we see that meme spreading everywhere. We're also looking at it through the lens predominantly of what we experience in this world. What do we experience in this world? Digital, computers, video games. So that's why those are the language and syntax we use. What I find fun is going through time, going through cultures, both backwards and forwards and laterally, and seeing like how there are essentially infinite perspectives saying the same thing through their lens. It's the coolest fucking thing.
Right. I was just going to say, like, simulation theory to me is more of a metaphor than anything, but I think it still works, but it's just different language. Like you said, for the same thing people have been talking about for all time. Simulation also means samsara to me. And like, so the simulation, I think, works just because we literally do kind of live in an organic quantum computer that we just call our brain. But yeah, like you were saying, it's just because science has taken over the mainstream narrative right now that we would more relate to scientific words like computers and simulation and codes and stuff like that.
You're a clever fox. You're using. I like that. I think in the past, for me, I've actually done a pretty good about face in a lot of ways, but I try to find kind of the contrarian or the non-mainstream modality. And I even found like an old tweet where I said, like, you can't subvert the system by working within the traditional power systems. And it was such like a teen angsty, like rebellious, like Of course you can, and you should. And that's usually how it's going to happen, because that what is has the most awareness and attention. Of course you can do it underground and write books and put out podcasts and, have Twitter accounts and all of that stuff. But I do see the value in interfacing with the traditional language, culture, syntax, political systems, even financial systems, even, because you're going to reach more people. And if this, what we spoke about right from jump in the last one that didn't record, is you told me flat out your pursuit and desire and wish and aspiration since you were very young is to just talk, discover, and put out truth, right? Talk a little bit about that.
So yeah, I've never seen myself just like I've always seen myself as doing exactly what I'm doing right now, and it's crazy because it all started happening within like the last 2 or 3 months, and I had visualized it and I had talked about it for years and years, but once it really starts happening, it's so different and weird. It's cool, like it's not nothing like I expected, or it doesn't feel exactly how I thought it would feel, or anything like that. It's so different, but I called it at the same time. It's just super strange. It feels surreal and dreamlike almost. And sometimes I don't even feel the emotions of how awesome it is in the moment until like I'm looking back on it again.
It's
So
interesting. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really weird. Like I got to talk to Duncan the other day, and
Duncan.
like that's
So
and
sweet.
that's yeah, he's a really nice guy. It's just funny to me because like a year ago I could never imagine that happening. Just watching Joe Rogan podcast and be like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to this dude. Like that's some people would say that's a crazy thing to think, but
No, it's not. Well, we have a mutual love and admiration for Neville Goddard, and his whole thing, even with all these techniques that I've taken, put out there, and kind of tweaked a little bit. What you begin to realize is that it's all just a clever kind of stage show for getting you to feel and believe that this is actually how reality works. It's like he started with cars and houses and relationships and these things because that's what people think they want. And you get those. There's no one saying, well, you don't really want that. Get it so you can realize whether you really wanted it. But what it shows you, more importantly than the material stuff, that's the law stuff, is the promise stuff is, yo, you're going to wake up to who you are and your God, your source, your Buddha, your Krishna, you're the programmer, you're everything. And then when you get to there and stabilize that, really stabilize it, this reality becomes such a different place and allows you to function in a way that is really in line with what and who you are, which truthfully, at the end of the day, let's be clear, is a loving, benevolent, generous, helpful, kind being. Like that's what that's what it
right.
is. So yeah.
I'm still in the state personally right now where it feels all kind of spooky, but not not in a bad way, but it's still kind of weird. But so yeah, I've always just wanted to be. I've always thought I was just going to be someone who spoke the truth. I always thought I was going to have this purpose. Like I just always wanted my life to mean something, and for me, that wasn't like I don't know. No offense. I think that people need regular jobs. Like we need them. We like everyone has a different puzzle piece to fit, and there's something that everyone wants to do. For me, that just was never what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to come to school and study philosophy, and I wanted to eventually become a philosopher, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. Becoming a philosopher is a really cool, uh, aspirational uh, thing to want to do. Let's talk about when things aren't in flow. This is something I want to spend more time talking about with people, not because we want to bring people out of a flow state, but I've recently realized when things aren't going well, when we react rather than wisely respond, when we just don't have our shit together, or even just if we feel like we do internally, but external situations are not conforming to our reality, um, I've begun to actually and truly and genuinely appreciate those moments, because as you continuously get to the other side using a bridge, the other side of the stream, the river, whatever you want to call it, whenever you look back at the times that weren't in total flow and happening exactly how you thought they would immediately, you're always like, you know what? That dichotomy, the polarity that I can view here makes this so much fucking better. Like that's kind of what you're alluding to now. Like it doesn't feel like you're stepping into your power. You're also stepping into it, as am I and a lot of other people, at a time where we're also releasing an in the process of releasing a lot of fucking baggage, a lot of psychic baggage, a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of just trauma and all of this shit. All of it's there. So it's a very interesting dance we're doing. I think that's what you're probably referring to. It doesn't feel exactly like you thought it would, because it's like, yo, I have everything I want, but also I have to deal with all this shit. Like,
Right.
why? It's cool, man. I totally get it. But what is it like for you when you're aware essentially that you're creating your own reality, that there also is all of this kind of intense, spooky, psychic, synchronistic stuff happening, and then you for like you shift out of it for a few hours or for half a day or for maybe even longer for some people, or for someone listening, maybe you could explain to them that maybe they haven't even shifted to the place where they know that that's just a temporary state. So like, how do you deal with that typically?
Well, it's really interesting how you said you like really appreciate it, because like yesterday we were supposed to get on a podcast. I was like, dude, I just need a personal day. I just came to do it. Like, I was just so, I guess, not in my flow. But as the day went on, I really started to just see how beautiful it was. It felt like, so in mysticism right now, at a class I'm taking at University of Toledo, um, we're studying John of the Cross, and he talks about the dark night of the soul
Yeah.
a lot. And I don't think I'm even close to being a mystic. I don't think I'm about to have this crazy freaking experience like that. But I don't know. It's possible. You never know. But I definitely felt that dark night of the soul type pain where I was like, I've never felt like this before. Like, I don't know. And I felt like, not to get too personal with it, because there's some reasons that I may have done some stupid shit to trigger that, but I definitely had never felt like that much guilt for something like average that people would normally just shrug off.
Mm.
And basically, I went out drinking. I'll just say that. And I felt like shit though. I was like, dude, I can't believe I would do something like that. And
Are you judging yourself for going out drinking?
yeah, I was judging myself, and I never judged myself that hard before. And so I was just like, God must really be changing me or something like that. I must just be turning into a different person who just doesn't do that type of thing. And yeah, but I started to love that moment. I was like, this pain's good. Like, it's giving me motivation to get up and go. Like, I went to the gym and I ran 2 miles and I sat in the sauna and I loved it. And I don't know. But so even when you're not in the flow and you're like in pain, I think that's still part of the flow. I think that, like, I'm a big believer in the Tao, and I think we're always kind of like, even if we're not in tune with ourselves, that's still part of your path that you're just supposed to be on. And there's no other way it could have happened. So the best thing you can do is just accept it in the now moment, because who you are is an exact product of like whatever just happened 30 seconds ago. And from the Big Bang until now, there is nothing you could have done to change all of those things. So the best thing you can do is just say it happened in the most perfect way. It
Yeah.
happened exactly as it should have. And so
Yeah.
that's how I was feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that is a powerful thing that some people may look at like a cop out, but when you understand the truth and reality of that statement, it really allows you to navigate this world just so much more easily and with ease and joy and comfort in a lot of ways. You'll still go through some shit, but what you're saying about the Tao and the stream is really important. Like, we're going to end up at the destinations that we've laid out for ourselves no matter what.
Right.
That's predetermined. People talk about like this schism between free will and determinism. You determine what's determinism. The free will is how you get there. If you're going down the stream and all of a sudden you decide, you know what, I want to go upstream. I want to go
Well,
upstream.
we wrote a paper about that, about determinism versus free will.
Yeah.
And I was like, I believe that people are a product of determinism until they learn to cut their strings.
Yes. Yes.
And that's like awakening, or like learning that you are the creator, basically.
You are, and that you can always change it too. People forget that. And I mean, I was talking about this on the astrology thing yesterday. I did, because people look at all these amazing modalities and tools and divinatory paths as revealing something that you don't know that's going to happen, and that's not what they are. They can be electional. You can use those things for really eerily accurate predictions. However, it's you're doing that. It's 100% you all of the time. And that's, people, I get in a lot of these questions like, how do I do this, how do I do that, and I answer as many as I can. But the truth is that you're doing it anyway. It's not like this is something we have to unnaturally summon forth. It feels like that consciously because we logically, it doesn't make sense to us. But everything in your reality at all times is a reflection of your current state of consciousness. It's just how it is. And you may not be able to see that because it's a deeper part of your conscious mind. But yeah, there's free will is actually the only thing that I don't see as, where I would say, well, there is one deterministic thing, which is every single person who incarnates as a human being. That's all I'm saying. As a human being, will wake up to this reality at some point, at one time or another. I know that for a fact. The way I know for a fact
in a certain lifetime.
Well, here's the thing. My conception of death is the Goddard conception of death. It's not that I think he had some special power or anything. It's just as I have pressure tested it and looked at it over and over again and compared it to all these other things, it makes way too much sense for me, which is that when you die, if you have realized this reality and this truth that you are the creator and sustainer of the world, you can do whatever you want, right?
Which he calls the promise, right?
This is the promise, right? This is the whole gist of it, and it lines up with every tradition. But if you haven't, you then go through an experience like the Tibetan Buddhists may go through, right? You have this opportunity to see the clear light. You have this ability to see the wrathful and peaceful deities. And what you're supposed to do is not turn away from them, but recognize they're you. When you do that, same thing. So these bardo state can lead to that. But Neville Goddard says this. He omits all of that. He says, if you don't wake up to this reality, die in any way, traumatic, not traumatic, end of life, happy, peaceful, whatever it is, you go back to a younger version of yourself in a world almost identical to this one. And you have a whole other opportunity to do the whole thing again until you keep doing it. This also lines up with Nietzsche, right? This idea of this infinite loop that we experience, which he thought was hell, basically. He's like the worst. And that is your hell if you can never get out of this infinite loop. However, if you wake up to it one of those times, it becomes the exact opposite. It's heaven on earth. It's completely different. So I do believe that that is essentially what happens with physical death. If you go through all of the mystics cross-culturally, cross-religion, cross-philosophies, they're all kind of saying the same thing. And that to me is hard to refute in linear time. But more importantly than that, going internally, right? Going internally and weighing it against what you know to be true. If it lines up, it lines up. Now, I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but I'm saying for my personal how I see what people are doing and kind of the trials and tribulations we put ourselves through here, that makes a lot of sense. And to be clear, how he came up with this conception was he was basically doing these imaginal techniques, and he'd send himself to higher dimensions of reality, and he'd wake up and it'd be just like this one. So there'd be no distinguishing characteristic between this world and the other one. And then he ran into someone who he knew had died in this world. He knew he died. So he's like, oh my God, like, what the fuck is going on? This guy died. How the fuck is he here? So he goes up to him. He's like, yo, Tom, like, you're dead. And imagine me coming up to you, Nick, and being like, you're dead. You'd be like, yo, bro, what the fuck? Just like, please don't say that. So what's the matter with you? You've lost it. You've totally lost it. No, it's gone. But he keeps telling him, and he realizes, because this guy's acting exactly how a normal person would act if you told them they were dead. He's like, holy fucking shit. He's like, I am in a world that is almost exactly like this one. You notice small differences, but this guy hasn't died. So he just moved one reality over, like one gradient, one fraction of an over where this guy hadn't died. And that's what the guy moves into. And it's like doing that until you wake up at the end or whenever you decide, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then it's really
that reminds me of Mandela effect almost.
Right? Why wouldn't it be that? Right? And if
right.
Collectively in 2012 that we shifted, like it really, all this imaginal stuff, just it adds up to, like, I'm waiting for the thing where I can't synthesize it. I love synthesizing things I've learned, and until I can't, like, I'm just like, oh fuck.
The imaginal stuff for me makes everything make so much more sense, so much easier. Yeah. Like, we're all struggling with this like scientific problem of how did the Big Bang even happen? Right. I'm like, dude, if you start with the imagination, it makes sense, because like a bunch of dust and fucking particles and, you know, some bullshit in space, can't visualize me, but I can visualize a Big Bang pretty easily.
Really?
So to me, that's just like makes it so simple.
And think of it like this: where does the majority of our science and relational quantum physics stem from? It's Einstein. Einstein, in case people don't know, I've mentioned a million times, he came up with the theory of relativity and special relativity by literally, I'm not talking about any other way, imagining himself on a light beam and imagining what he would see were he to be traveling at the speed of light. He talks about it all of the fucking time. And
I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, that's why he's goofy. That's why he's got his tongue out everywhere. This motherfucker cracked the code and he's like, you know what? Here it is. I imagined it, therefore it's true. And that's why also people get caught up in this whole theory of everything, right? They want it to be there laid out mathematically, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But just seeing the mathematical formula will not give you the direct experience of the truth behind the theory of relativity and special relativity and unified consciousness and quantum physics and the observer effect and all of these things. It is the recognition that, oh my gosh, what goes on up here in our heads and what we believe and feel to be true actually is unfolds in this world. I mean, what you're alluding to with the scientific materialism, and I'm not being pejorative about it at all, I think it's wonderful. The empirical method is what I recommend people use to prove to themselves that this is how it works. But it is this kind of reductive, if you're looking at this world, which is literally the effect. This is the effect. It is not the cause. It is never the cause. It is always the effect. It is essentially a dead world, what Blake referred to as a shadow of mortality. It is not a real thing. It is like, don't take that too literally and mean that we aren't here for a reason. But I mean, if you're going for insight based on this world, you're doing it backwards. As we move into this shift that you're seeing, this Saturnian age, right? Chronos kind of moving into this water-based, unconscious, emotional, intuitive, flowy world, we're going to see the imagination really fucking take off, like in terms of like how this stuff works, not theoretically, but proving it. So
we might even be, we talked about this last time, kind of how I think that we're moving towards a technological singularity, and you didn't really agree with that much, but something we might see that would make sense if we're moving into a world more of imagination is, let's say, AI and robotics do become way, way more advanced. Well, if they start taking over factories and stuff and, all the little jobs that no one wants to do, we might have a lot more time to be creative. And, that will be the types of jobs that will like flourish, is like things that deal with love and creativity. People aren't going to hire a robot to take care of their kids while they're at work or whatever. Or,
well, dude, that is such a wonderful and I think accurate vision of the potentiality of robotics and these things that are going on. Obviously, the doom side is like what happened in the Matrix, but I really don't believe we're living in like Terminator and Matrix worlds in terms of the gloom and doom. I think that's a metaphor for this psychological state we've been in for so long, and that's why
we're already there.
Yeah, we're already there. And like we see it constantly reflected back in culture, like the superhero movies, right? The X-Men and all of that stuff. Like that, I love that shit when I was a kid, from the comic books and the cards. Like it is just pointing to the reality of the situation that you're a mutant. You have superpowers. I mean, I tweeted it out yesterday, and I think when people fully get this, it'll just change their lives. If you feel deeply, if you have the capacity to feel anything deeply, that is an incredible superpower. Because that means if you can sustain and hold and know that feeling to be true in any direction, you will actually absolutely experience it without a doubt. Now, where people kind of don't recognize that is if you feel really bad, if you feel really sad, if you feel really enraged, well, you don't want to believe that feeling creates reality, but I'm telling you, it does. And when you feel amazing, when you feel waves of gratitude and ecstasy and joy, and you wonder how you could share this with people, just believe in the feeling. And guess what? You start sharing it with people. It's just an incredible superpower that really beats every other superpower in the Marvel universe. Like, yeah, shooting webs. Well, that wasn't even his power for Spider-Man, but getting bitten by a spider and being able to climb up walls is great and all. And slinging around city seems great from the game. But, is better if you could just immediately make everyone feel good and make yourself feel at ease. Like that's the best power ever. That's like Jesus' superpower. It's good.
That's the goal of all the other superpowers, isn't it? To do something to make people feel good.
Right? To eliminate the bad, to get rid of things that make, yeah, exactly. So that really is a superpower that everyone has, and it's the best. Fucking love it, man. So I don't want to get too far away from the other interests you have, like the Fatum project. So now I want to talk a little bit about that because I now know more about it. I understand it. And I was reading something that caught my attention, which kind of is what we started this conversation about, which is some of these coordinates that are generated by the random number generator. People will find that there's quite a bit of resistance for going out of their predetermined reality tunnels, as it's put.
Right.
Yeah, man. Explain to me your involvement. I love the 333 thing, the whole Fatum spiel. I love it.
Okay, so in the spirit of synchronicity, I will tell the story of how I got involved in this Fatum project because it is quite synchronistic. So yeah, there was just a random normal day where I was scrolling Reddit, and I started noticing a bunch of people were tagging my research on the OA subreddit, saying like, "Oh, this guy has a lot of theories about cubes and octopuses," and it all lines up with the OA. And I was like, "What is the OA like? There's a TV show that talks about cubes and octopuses? Because if there is, I want to watch it." And so around the same time, there was like, yeah, I was explaining to you the other day how there's these people, the dimensional jumpers. And on Reddit, there are a group of people who really think they can dimensional jump. And at the time when they added me to their group, they must have just found me through all of my posts or something. But they added me. I was like, why are these people adding me? I do not believe in this. This is too out there for me.
Yeah.
But, you know, things have changed since then. But
you jump through portals every fucking day. So, yeah.
Right. And so they added me to the group and they were like, "Nick, have you ever watched the OA? Have you ever watched the OA?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't, but I keep hearing about it. So like, I guess I'm gonna have to watch it, even though, you know, I hate sitting down and binge watching anything on TV. It's so boring to me." But I decided I would do it because it seemed important. You know, it seemed like I was being I was being led that way. And so I started watching it. And at one point in the show, there's these kids who are using an app on their phone, and the app takes them to a dimensional jumping spot, basically a place where you can jump dimensions, and
launch pad type thing.
Yeah, launch pad area, and it's this weird mansion, and inside the mansion, there's this poem on the wall, and it is a poem by T.S. Eliot that's something like, "After all of our exploring, we will arrive at the place where we started and know it for the very first time." And I was like, holy shit, I love that poem. And I made it my background on my phone. And it's still my background right now. And so then, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was me. I was like, I thought I put this shit on airplane mode. No. But so the next day, like literally after I watched that episode, actually, okay, so the next day after I watched that episode where they find that weird app, I come across an article that's literally about the same thing almost. Like, I just find this article on Reddit. It's like, these people think they're hacking the simulation and can jump dimensions through a phone application. I'm like, dude, what the hell? That's so I'm like, I feel like I found the real app, and then I go to class, and my professor starts reading that T.S. Eliot poem. The first thing, he's just like, "I want to read a poem to start the class." I was like, dude. So I felt like I was in the TV show, and I was like, this is really weird. It's all meant to be. And so I found the project. I joined it. I'm the 333rd person to join. Now there's like 8,000, but I thought that was crazy. I was like, okay, I'm definitely meant to be involved in this. And, you know, I posted about it. I was like, I'm the 333rd person, guys. Look at my username. It's Nick Hinton 33 or 333. And like, you know, no one cared. They thought I was an asshole. But no one cared.
They thought you were probably, if I know Reddit, they probably thought you were waiting there, hovering until 332, and then like, boom, oh, look at me. That's such a Reddit move, though.
Yeah.
I get it, man.
I was just lucky. And then yeah, so like no one even paid attention. I was like pretty upset. But then over time, like I started making I made the original logo, and then I started writing articles about it, and eventually, one of my buddies, Tobias, I just learned his name. I've been freaking. I have his phone number. I text him and call him, and I just call him his username. But I
What
just
was
learned
he?
his
What was he in your phone as? Just his username?
comrade. Yeah,
Oh.
for like the longest time. But yeah, so he's like, dude, you earned your spot, man. Like you've been doing this forever, so you are like, you can run the social media. You're basically the PR man or like the marketer and whatever. So yeah, it's been probably like 6 months since this all began. But yeah, so the whole idea of the Fatum project is we're using a quantum random number generator to produce locations or coordinates on a map, and people are going to these weird places. Or they're not weird places. I mean, it's
Just places.
weird.
They're just
Yeah,
places.
they're just regular places. But the theory is that you're literally walking out of your most probable timelines because you're going to a quantum random place, some place that you would have never normally chosen to go based on your subconscious thoughts and your normal habits and patterns and external influences that normally affect you day to day.
It's a
You
random in the truest sense of the word that you are not now, as I'm sure you realize. How random is it really?
right, because when people are going to these places, they're experiencing really weird synchronicity.
Right. And how could they not be? This is why I love randomness as a thing, and why when we see statistical analysis of chances against odds, or beating the probability of something, that doesn't cut the mustard for most of science, right? It doesn't hold up for enough scientific studies to be like, oh yeah, psi phenomenon are real, or like location and remote viewing are real. Nevertheless, there is heavy evidence that these things have been used and investigated. These random air quotes locations. My contention, I think you probably would already know this, is that these are experiences that everyone who goes in and gets a location has pre-programmed for themselves to experience, and is using the modality of seemingly the most random thing possible to then experience confirmation of these synchronicities, which fits in line that you're the conductor. You're conducting it for yourself. And this is just such an amazing kind of nexus point for showing people that, as like, it is the launch pad, right? It is the fucking launch pad. It's the Oooh
Yeah,
launch pad. Wow.
yeah, to go to a meaningful dimension, I guess. Because a lot of people that are using this, are saying how it's helped them. Like they're like, I don't get out of the house, and so they have like a place to go. And I've noticed that, like, if you're going to a new place, I think it's a really cool way to explore like a totally new place where you have no idea where you're at. Like if you just roll into a new city and you've got like an hour, just freaking turn on the Randonautica app and just go explore a totally random location there because you
And
know
and think of it as something that can help you deal with and overcome fear, right? Like those people who, like, let's say you find a random, you do this, right? And you get thing, and then you notice a resistance to it.
oh yeah,
Even if you don't
yeah.
go to it, like you can explore, like, what is this threshold guardian? Why is this here? So it's like got so many different. It is the crack in the door. Could be kicking it open depending on the experience, but it the very least, it's the crack in the door for people recognizing that their consciousness is actually doing something more than they thought it was.
Right. So for people that haven't fully realized that the imagination creates reality, and that's not going to be true for everybody, like you said. So, but in my opinion, in a more materialistic, deterministic view, what this app is doing is amplifying the power of intention for people that haven't fully
Yes.
exercised that power yet. Because if consciousness is truly able to affect a quantum random number generator, which there are studies that say it may be able to, if the consciousness is affecting the number generator as it's producing a location, I think you somehow are just taken to a place that represents your dominant thoughts.
Isn't
Because
it a
you're
bridge? It's a bridge, what this thing is. It's the perfect fucking bridge. It's something that I'm trying to do with podcasts and music and all these other things, conversations, but it's just linking the conscious mind with the unconscious mind, which when those two are linked up, actually proves to you empirically and direct experience wise, experientially, that this is how reality works. And this is a very gentle way of doing it for people who may not have even had that thought before, because it's just like, oh, let's do this fun thing. And they're like, what the fuck? And then they go down this rabbit hole of like, what the fuck? Remember, the rabbit hole is Alice went down it because she was chasing the white rabbit, right? This thing was, she's like, what the fuck? He's late. He's late. He's late for a very important date. I got to go check this shit out. At any point, you can catch that rabbit. That's my favorite part. You catch that rabbit, that's your buddy. You go wherever the fuck you want to go. I love this. I understand it so much better just from Friday when we last did this. It's just like, it's such a clever and really like a benevolent, I mean, it's what you make it clearly, but it seems very benevolent. Like it seems
it's fun.
Yeah.
And people are encouraged to take trash bags with them. So even if they're not jumping to a different reality, they can change reality in that small way of just cleaning up nature. But
when did that aspect come into the project? From the beginning, the trash bags, or like after people noticed they were going places?
After people noticed they're finding a lot of piss bottles.
Someone imagined piss bottles, then everyone started finding piss bottles. That's incredible.
It became a meme. We have the piss bottle meme.
Holy shit.
We have like memes of like Men in Black dudes like holding like the piss bottle.
Yes. Dude,
but yeah, the despair meme. Sorry, I still haven't answered your question about what that is yet. But yeah, it's just that, like you already pretty much said, it's just the resistance someone feels when they're, jumping out of their predetermined path. You're gonna feel that it's almost like the Matrix or whatever wants you to stay where you are, not to jump off your path too much. So you do get a feeling of resistance, and sometimes it shows up in different ways. Like people have reported that their animals, like if they're walking their dog, like start acting weird, or like if you're with friends, like I've actually experienced it with friends. Like I'm like, all right, can we go yet? Can we go try it? And they're like, hold on. Like no one wants to go do it, even after they already agreed to go do it. It's like,
but do you know what the Matrix, the dogs and animals and your friends all have in common?
They're me.
Yeah, that's it. External threshold guardians. Neville Goddard also said this thing and it freaked me out. He said, all animals are you. And I'm like, oh, no. Like you look at an animal, it has a soul. And they say, when you look at a person, they have a soul. It is, but it's you. And this is this apocalyptic thing that happens is like when you go down this rabbit hole, when you start plunging, it's an inescapable fact that it's all you. And it doesn't invalidate anyone's existence, things existence, and in fact, it enhances it. But that's what I would, all of those things, the Matrix, government employees, all of the elite, all of these things, dogs, your friends, they're just external threshold guardians that you are throwing up at yourself. And sometimes we collectively throw up at each other to basically be not evil dicks, but to be gatekeepers, to be people like, you know what, like, you sure you want to go in there, buddy? Because it's pretty wild in there. They're like bouncers, basically. They're like dimensional bouncers. It's really what they
are. Yeah, I think that's a good view to have, though. Like, some people might say that's like too solipsist or whatever, but like, if everything's you pushed out, why would you not love it and treat it as you would treat yourself, like Jesus said?
Yeah, solipsism is, I think, one of the most difficult threshold guardians to conquer if you are a open-hearted, kind, logical, analytical person, because anything can be solipsism. Anything can be potentially this delusional dream that everything is you or okay or great. And they'll say, well, look at the world. How can this be true? Well, you don't understand the law, my friend. It makes perfect sense that there's suffering out there because people don't know it's them creating it. So how does that account for starving kids and people who are homeless? Well, do you believe in homeless people? Do you believe they exist? Yeah. Well, they fucking exist. Why do they exist? Because we know there's an imbalance. How do we fix it? We wake up that it's us. We fix the imbalance. Oh my God, there's not as many homeless people. There's not as many sick kids. We equally redistribute resources because we don't have to be greedy and selfish and think it's a dog-eat-dog world where there's only so much of the pie. We recognize there's no such thing as scarcity. We live on a planet with essentially infinite resources. As long as we don't fuck it up, which we won't, we're good. We're fucking good. But people don't think like that. all of the time. So they want to question it and put up solipsism, which I get as a philosophical exploration is super fucking strong. It's like the new existential dread. It's like the new atheism or agnosticism, solipsism. It's like, do you want to explain what it is for people? You're studying this shit. I know I'm just using the word over and over again.
It's just like, in a sentence, just the belief that you and your imagination are the only thing that are actually provable to exist.
Right.
There's no way to say that anyone else exists. It could just easily be a figment of your imagination, which in a way it is. Everyone outside of you is just electrical impulses in your brain, but that's not to.
We're doing this together. We're God, we're source fragmented off. We're this unified being fragmented off into individuated and individual senses of itself. The program that Neville Goddard identified, and Hinduism and Buddhism and all of them identified, is we set ourselves on a path to rediscover the truth of that statement. Depending on your culture and your conceptions of what death is, that may freak the fuck out of you. If you hear that, like, when you die, there's nothing, there's no you, oh my God, that sounds horrible. But if you recognize that, like, there is a you, it's a bigger you, and if you don't like that yet and you still want to be Nick or Noah or whoever, you can still do that. No one is fucking doing this to you but you. So if you wake up to who you are, you don't have to be freaked about it all the time.
Right. I agree with that. I don't think it's a scary thought anymore. I used to.
Anymore? Oh, me too. Are you kidding me? It's the worst thing in the world up until like a few months ago.
Right. Are
you kidding me? It's the nightmare.
I believe in that exact same thing that you said, that it's all sparks of one flame that is God. And we're just experiencing ourselves from different points of view, getting to know ourselves again.
And it's fun. And it's not as scary as one might think. I think what scares or freaks out a lot of people, I know it did for me, is the sense of responsibility. And you will have to deal with it in this world too. It's not just like this esoteric concept of responsibility. It's like your responsibilities will be amped up in this world as you realize this. Like, truthfully. It's not like, oh yeah, I just have more responsibility. I'm responsible for everything. Whatever. It's like,
I think that's what happened the other day when Saturn was freaking, going direct. I felt all of the, it felt like a new beginning for me.
My friend, a new beginning comes when karmic chains are broken. Sounds delightful, but when karmic chains are broken, we're at this base point where we get to do whatever we want. If you take a misstep or an unskillful action towards something that maybe isn't the best thing for you right then, it's all relative. It's not some big scary thing, that your logical, analytical ego mind will go like, whoa, hold up a second. Don't go that way. Don't look down. You're walking on a tightrope between two mountains. It's all good though. It's all good. You can fall.
Right.
Right below with another infinite series of mountains. Like, it's all good, man. I just, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with recognizing that you are the literal creator and sustainer of everything that you see, and not in an egotistical way, or not in a way that like you're manipulating. It's a weight that is it's a crown. Do you want to know what it is? This is how it's described in the Emperor Tarot. It's a crown. It is a heavy crown. Doesn't mean it's too heavy, but it means you have to keep your head up high and deal with the pressure, the literal pressure, not in a way that makes you tense and makes you act out of the way that is in your highest intention and aspirations. But you got to learn how to stand up straight and deal with the shit that comes with it. We all want to be God. We all want to have special powers. But most of us, before we get those things and realize that, don't think of the other things that come with it, right? If you're God, if you're everything, if you're source, if you're the universe, you don't want to be a shitty one. You don't want to be a fucking nightmarish Caligula, just like creating a hell world for everyone around them. But Caligula had his benefits at times. But the point is like, like you want to be aware of all that you're inviting into yourself. If you're everything, you're getting everything. And that can be,
Yeah, no, I really like that comparison to the crown. I like that a lot. But I mean, it's literally true. Like, for people that might think it sounds too outlandish, that we're literally the generators of reality. Your brain is literally the only thing responsible for everything you experience. It's literally you. When you think about it that way, that's kind of crazy. That it's literally factual. It's not just this, this fantasy. It's literally a fact.
You want to look at it from the physiological. You know what am realizing through a lot of my conversations recently is I am far too dismissive of the physiological benefits and insights that can be gleaned that help us here. And I think it's predominantly because I don't believe in it too much, because like I know that like you can miraculously change physical things through your belief, which sounds nutty, but it's true. However,
Yeah, epigenetics proves that we can change our own body.
well, and this is why I actually have been encouraging people not to look too much into their genetics. It can create a belief about something, about what's going to happen or the potential for it to happen. And when you can break free of that and recognize you're actually a limitless, timeless being, yeah, you have a physical body. Yeah, you have a family. Yeah, there's a whole story that goes along with it. But if you're not pinned down to that, you actually have a lot more latitude. I think you'll find people in life who are very free in what they do and where they go, both internally and externally, aren't pinned down by conventions or genetics or cultures, right? I mean, look at artists and creators. They sometimes create new identities completely because they're so not pinned down to who they were that they're totally
Yeah.
okay with doing. And people look at them and they go, oh, they're trying to escape something. They're trying to be someone else's. And like, no, they probably just recognize that they can be whatever they want and therefore they do.
Right. And even people who are yelling that, they're escaping things all the time every day. It's like, let him who hasn't sinned throw the first stone or whatever. Like everyone is constantly doing stuff like
That
that.
the alchemy that I found that's changed my life more than anything is that realization, the difference between recognition and discernment and identification and judgment, right? It's cool to recognize difference in things, and it's cool to be able to discern when someone takes an unskillful action. Like, I don't believe we should be putting children in cages really under any circumstances. I haven't found one where that's justified unless the kids have knives and are like trying to kill us with them. Like maybe that one for a little bit, but like I don't see it. However, if I turn that recognition into identifying with the opposite position, which is this is an evil act, these people who are doing this are evil, I've now placed myself in a position to identify with the opposite polarity. The distance from identification to judgment is nothing. It's so quickly to be like, I identify with this, I'm not that, I judge that. If you can keep it in the recognition of like, oh, I don't think that's good to do, and then be discerning and say, oh, I'm not going to do that, or maybe there's something I could do that help with that. That's so much more effective than looking at something you react to negatively and being like, ah, that shit never works. It never
Right.
works. It never works ever. Never. I mean, it's not a lot of things you can say never. There's truth to anger. There's clarity that can come with anger. And I believe that's valid. But if you can't stop yourself from going into straight up outrage and unbalancing yourself, that shit doesn't work. I don't even, morality aside, it doesn't work. So whatever you're trying to do, you will not be able to do if you meet the same energy. If you meet hate with hate, that shit's hate. You meet hate with love, you got a shot. Like you got a shot. That's all I know.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Breaks it up, makes it less solid.
Right? And then you can maybe like, instead of trying to take down the whole fucking tree, you can pull it apart in pieces after it's fallen with a chainsaw and some shit, rather than like, I gotta move this whole fucking tree at once. And that's also like a metaphor for psychological states as much as anything, like depression. I've been talking to people who have identified or identify as depressed, and I know the people I can say this to. I don't say it to everyone. But I'm like, listen, it's a state of consciousness, and it's a sticky state of consciousness, and that's a whole fucking tree. But if you can learn some strategies to cut that motherfucker up and take it off in smaller pieces, maybe really small pieces at first, and then bigger ones until you're strong enough, you'll see that it is a state like anything else, and carry it off till it's away and replace it with some beautiful other tree that bears fruit and apples.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And like you said, sometimes we deal with echoes of it, and those are just like weeds. So once you're never gonna have to stop taking out weeds. I think you
No,
always have to constantly cultivate your mind.
yeah, the only way you would get rid of weeds, which I don't think anyone really want to do, is like you poison the earth. And then the weeds don't come back, because weeds, like I've learned this year from weeding, some weeds grow into really beautiful flowers, like purple. They're just plants like anything else. We deem them annoying and they get in the way of our other beautiful things. And I let these weeds grow, just to be clear, for the past 2 years, but they took over and it became very clear to me, I got to get rid of all these weeds. And as I did it, paradoxically, this is what Jordan Peterson actually has right, is when you clean up your physical space, when you take care of your surrounding area physically, psychologically, what happens is the exact same thing. It's not just this one-way street that imagination only creates reality. If you can recognize that when you start taking steps in this reality to physically clean up, the law of reversibility states that the same thing is going to flow backwards too. So like that is something that, like, if people do get too caught up in this whole imagination stuff, just physically clean up in your life. I will say it did happen the other way for me. I had attempted to physically, and I had exercise, eat better, clean up in my surroundings, but until I did it internally, it didn't stick as a thing I continuously did. So that's the only reason, again, I'm deviating back to imagination, but there is a correlation, if you recognize it, between physically cleaning up your space and what happens internally. There's no doubt about it.
Definitely. I think it's a feedback loop of information. You're putting stuff out, getting stuff back. It's it's like that mirror analogy that you can't change what's in the mirror by wrestling with the reflection.
Yeah.
But I do believe doing the physical act it'll make you think different. It'll just make you think more clear once you get moving.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I fucking love it. What are you doing now that the book is out? It's coming in. Where are your imaginal acts taking you in the future?
Um, I really want to start releasing music, and I want to start this podcast out in Cali with my buddy in Fresno.
Do it. When are you doing
Yeah.
it?
I think like 2 months from now, I think I'll be out there.
Amazing. Oh, so we
Uh,
can be there at the same
uh,
time, essentially.
yeah, around November.
I'm early November. But yeah, man, that would be cool, dude. I think it's gonna be pretty amazing. Um, woo, buckle up. We have karmic shit to deal with over the next few months, in my estimation. I keep thinking I'm done. And then I'm like, oh, that one. It's like, that one. But man, 2020 is gonna be so nice. It's just gonna be so nice. Do you know anything about Ho'oponopono? Ho'oponopono. Do you know anything about that?
I feel like I might have seen it, but no, I don't.
I don't. Someone told me about it last night, and it's like the third person who did. It's like some ceremony that they do in Hawaii and in other places like Samoa and Tahiti and New Zealand, and it's like this cleansing, purifying thing. And I think the reason I'm bringing it up now is because it's important. I don't have any other information on it. It has to do with reconciliation and forgiveness. So
I'll definitely look into it.
Yeah, if anyone, this reminds me of what I wanted to say. You have an incredible skill and gift for being able to present information in a way on subjects that are typically, like, people get a little too weird about it. You have a very clear and direct way of presenting it, which I think is in no small part an expression of who you are, but it's what's leading to the awareness. Like your Twitter is so fucking fire. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like I follow a lot of people on Twitter, man. And dude, it's that skill that I think, if when applied to all of the things you do, like that's just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. So I'm gonna feed you shit to research from time to time that I think is important, because you're gonna connect these dots for us.
Right. The whole goal for me is literally just to present the information in such a way where it's believable and people can actually fall down the rabbit hole who aren't like, super, super well versed in all this stuff. Like, a lot of us are. Some people are wondering about things and they just haven't seen it presented the right way. They're just, they can't, it's not believable to them until they see it with all the facts and all the coincidences, like right in front of your face.
Right.
And so all these people that have been seeing this stuff, like me for like 10 years, I'm like, how, like, it's obvious to conspiracy theorists, but no, the whole goal is just to get people on the same level in a way where they don't have to fricking spend months going through different links and reading a bunch of different crap. And then, but the whole point of it is to realize that at the bottom of the rabbit hole is that we are all creators and we're creating this reality together. And I think the big scary Illuminati, whatever the hell we're facing, is just our own collective shadow.
Yes.
It's just the ego.
Yeah, and like we should have compassion for the people who we put in those positions in the same way we should have compassion for the people who are suffering financially in poverty and with illness. Like there's an Illuminati and elite regardless of the level of organization, because we believe there to be. And if we identify someone who we think is in it, we make them that. That's like the
Right.
trick of this shit. And like, if you had like a family member who you did that to, if like, let's just pick on this person, make them the bad guy, they're going to be the shithead. Like, that's mean. So don't, if you think that that's what's going on, recognize that we're creating it as much as them, and we may be projecting our shadows that we don't want to deal with. You know, maybe if we had billions of dollars, we wouldn't be the most ethical people either. So when you deal with your own shit and are honest with it, maybe we can actually start transmuting this. And like, here's what's going to happen. You know, all these rich people, what's going to happen? It's going to become so fucking clear in a matter of years. They're going to be like, okay, let's put our resources to saving the planet and making it not bad. And if some of us have to come up and take that money through crypto and other means and be those people, so be it. But if some of them who are already there want to stay there and be known as like benevolent, nice people who figured it out at some people, they're in the position to do that too. So let's not keep condemning them, thereby becoming them and reinforcing what they are. So like, that's my whole conspiracy, Illuminati, elite. And like, yeah, if they're child pedophiles, that's awful. No one should be a child pedophile. That shouldn't be happening. But even those fuckers, even those people, you got to look at like a family member who did some fucked up shit and maybe shouldn't be locked in a cage and condemned for the rest of their lives. Because you're, you know, who knows? I'm just saying.
And they worship Saturn. Maybe. Well, most of their headquarters have giant black cubes. So my whole theory with that is that Saturn is literally just the analytic, like the ultimate manifestation of the analytical, egotistical mind. Like that's what the demiurge is. That's who the god of this world is right now, is our collective ego.
And then it dies, though. I mean, then it's transmuted into the other, because right now the feminine, the water-based feeling is just totally overwhelming this world. I mean, overwhelming. It will balance. It will balance. I mean, Aquarius is going to be watery, but I mean, it will balance more. But I mean, it is like enveloping everything. And,
Right.
you know.
Oh yeah, we're on our way out. That's why I think the book is coming out. That's why I think this information that is so crazy is becoming almost mainstream. That Saturn, you know, Saturn's like in every movie right now.
It's everywhere. It's Chronos. It's time. It's basically like every superhero movie that I've seen, every comic book movie is basically this shit. It's just like
Yeah.
straight up. Every villain is like some evil personification of Saturn and the dem. It's just so funny. I love it, man. Where can people get the book?
Just follow me on Twitter and DM me.
I'm
working on getting like a real website set up. I mean, I have a website. I'm just working on getting like the actual store set up on the website.
Hey man, it's transition time. You're a student still. You're still trying to do. You're doing a lot of shit, man. I get it. These are these, I wouldn't call them ebb moments. It's like just if the wave dips a little bit, but these are these moments where we're transitioning into completely new versions of ourselves in a new world. And just be patient and enjoy the ride, man. I'm super happy that this shit is happening for you. Let's get to the 3 questions. And I can also guarantee you this is recording. I've seen the recording.
I see it too.
Yeah. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
What's your favorite number?
33.
What's your favorite animal?
A shark.
See, you're consistent. I mean, granted, it's only like a few days ago, but people's change. Practical tip that has helped you in your life that you could share with people listening.
Okay, I told you this last time, but I'm going to use it again. It's the I have an alarm on my phone that goes off twice a day where it's just a positive affirmation. The one I choose to put is I am healthy, wealthy, and wise. And for me, that whenever it goes off, I look down at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to keep my thoughts on track. And it's just a nice reminder. It really feels like, I don't know. It's just a good feeling when you get that notification. You're like, oh, nice. And then you kind of shut off the inner dialogue for a second and you're just reminded of your goals or whatever.
Yeah, it's honestly, Hey, I've spoken about using the gratitude one before. I think this is what we should be using these devices for as much as anything else. These positive reminders and affirmations, just as an experiment if you don't believe in it, and you'll start to see like something happens. It's not nothing.
Right.
Like,
This has
so
only been 2 months since I've started, 2 to 3 months since I started the whole manifestation mind science stuff. Yeah, so you could literally go check out my YouTube channel. The first video I ever made, the first vlog, I said, "Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is not going to be a good channel. I'm not a professional YouTuber or anything, but I'm basically just documenting my manifestations and self transformation." I literally said first video, like, this summer is going to change my life. I'm going to become famous, and that's it's crazy.
it's cool because like I also like that the aesthetic, like I also thrive, and I know this will change and it will get more polished and stuff, but I also really love that we can gain awareness about something that is helping people and not have to go like the traditional aesthetic route of like YouTuber or Instagram's person. It's just there's something so satisfying about it to me. Cause like it's a natural kind of backlash in a lot of way of the overly produced influencer market. And it's like now we can step in and be regular people doing awesome shit. I'm so
Right. I just wanted to show people that it was legit and real, that
yeah,
anyone could
of
do it.
course. That's the whole reason. Listen, there's the truth. People can do it for not that reason and still have success, but it works so it's so much more fun and awesome and fulfilling to actually be able to share something that you know has helped you and the external proof helps validates that for other people so it can help them. That's the whole fucking name of the game. And have fun with it. That's basically it. Nick, this has been a pleasure. I feel like this one was way better, right? This one was way better than Friday.
I think the audio quality is a lot better, and I'm not as freaking nervous.
There you go. It all happened for a great reason.
Right.
All right, man. Thanks for listening to that episode. Go check out Nick on Twitter. That's Nick Hinton, 2 N's at the end. I'm pretty sure it's just 1 N for him, but on Twitter it's 2 N's. So go check him out. His tweets are great. I'm big on Twitter, so you already know. At Noah Lampert, you know what it is. If you want to be entered in this month's October's drawing, October 2019, for a free tarot reading, I'm doing a 30-minute reading for a listener every month. Follow me on Instagram and DM me, and then you're entered. That's it. Applicants I will be hiring this month. Give me about 2 weeks and we'll have someone here who will be helping me out. You just need to be resourceful, good with computers, and just like a cool person. That's basically it. So if that sounds like you, apply. Send me an email, noah@syncpodcast.com. That's how you apply. That's it. Rate and review this podcast. Send it to someone who you think would be interested in it. What else? Join the email list. I'm going to be sending emails out. It's October, spooky, scary, werewolf, bar mitzvah. We're going to be doing fun stuff this month. Buckle up. WITMA. Don't forget about that if you're in New York City. New York City. Does anyone know why I say it like that from the Pace Picante salsa commercials that used to be on? Where's your salsa from? El Paso. Where's your salsa from? New York City. Literally no one has any idea what I'm talking about at this point, but you've stuck around this long to the outro, so this is the price you pay for that. I will see you in a couple of days with a solo episode. The theme is emerging. It's emerging. That's it. Bye-bye. Happy imagining.